Welcome back, everyone, to Red Spotlight Entertainment. I'm Alexis, and I'm joined by David, of course, for our Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. recap, rewatch, reaction series. We're already on episode number 14. Today's episode is going to be Yes Men, an interestingly anticipated episode for, I want to say a few people, but we'll see about that. This is, of course, episode 15, written by Shalisha Francis, and it is directed by John Terlesky. This was broadcast on March the 11th of 2014 to 5.99 million viewers. So this is where we're at for today. I want to preface this entire reaction by just making sure we're all on the same page about a couple of things here, ladies and gentlemen. This episode, from what I understand, it's hotly, contested for a number of different things. I just want to put it out right now. It's not necessarily one of my favorites. I don't really think back fondly at this episode. I think it's a perfectly enjoyable episode of the show, but I understand why there is such hatred and vitriol toward particular elements of this episode that people just I don't necessarily gel with. I want to say, David, one of the clips I shared, I don't know, did you ever finish the whole video, Emily B? No. Okay, did you okay. But did you get as far as to where she was talking about this episode?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, because that's an interesting the commentary, I don't necessarily remember quite specifically what it was that she said, but I can actually pinpoint it out. Is it possible, David, for us to insert the clip when she talks about this episode into this reaction?
Yeah, I'll just need the clip itself.
Okay, is it possible for us to watch it right now? Because I feel like we need to kind of do that, only because I don't want to speak for her.
Yeah.
And it's actually kind of important. So this part,
which is the only non-S.H.I.E.L.D. character Marvel movie crossover, which is cool, I guess, but it would be a lot cooler if it was in a different episode. Basically, Lady Sif comes to Earth to pursue this rogue Asgardian lady who can control people with her voice. But oh wait, it's only men! All men, yes, because all men have the same weakness. They're all attracted to women, and they just can't resist. This is totally a true thing about all men. This is such good storytelling. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. said, you don't need gay rights, because gay people do not exist. I mean, I don't think that was the intention, but it's like they basically say that.
Her powers don't work on women.
No. Men have an inherent weakness we do not share. An inherent weakness we do not share.
I'm not saying you were weak, I'm saying all men are weak.
It's just so fucking stupid. It's so terrible. I hate this episode so much. It sucks. Just stalls the show's momentum anyways, and it's just so weird. Not in a fun way, in a gross way. Warren has sex with the Asgardian lady while under her mind control, which, again, I don't know how the writers intended that to come off, but it does not sit right with me. It's bad. It's so bad. The only interesting thing about the episode is it's kind of the culmination of Coulson's arc of not trusting the system and questioning S.H.I.E.L.D., but it's not nearly a big enough part of the episode to redeem it in my eyes. Oh, and May's a narc. However, it does make a pretty stark contrast to two of the best episodes of the season, if not the entire show. So, complete whiplash, especially if you're watching these back to back. It's kind of jarring. So, all of the twists and reveals that I've talked about so far are just dwarfed in comparison to what the show has actually been building up to. Something that would basically change its direction forever.
This is where we stopped. Okay, we can stop right here. That's the section of the video I wanted us to look at. That way we have it in our minds as we watch it ourselves. And I am sure a lot of people feel the same way, especially one of the things that I can just tell you flat out right now, and I want to address it at the very top because of this very reason. One of the things that did not occur to me, I didn't even think twice about it. Again, this was 2014 when this aired, but there is a little bit of a questionable choice with, the fact that in this episode, Ward does have sex with Lorelai, but of course he's being mind controlled. And it can't just be me that's thinking back to Wonder Woman 1984, right?
Yeah, that was my first thought when she brought that up. I was just like,
it brought
Wonder
me
Woman
back.
Again.
Yeah. But then again, technically Shield did it first. In this weird way, but it brought me back to that movie, and in that scene specifically where it was like, what is happening right now? What is happening? This is so strange. And I remember all of us when we were talking about it on the show after seeing the movie, we're like, what were they going for here? Because I guess we could just say it out in Wonder Woman 1984 for those who haven't seen it, and I imagine a good deal of people have not seen it because it came out in 2020. It was on HBO Max, and then it got really bad reviews, and I'm sure that discouraged a lot of people from seeing it in the first place. But there was a sequence in which Diana has sex with Trevor, right? Steve Trevor, is that's the character's name?
Yes.
Or Chris Pine, basically. But Chris Pine died in the first film. But Chris Pine's ghost, I guess, is somehow taking over, is back, but he's living through somebody else's. He took over somebody else's vessel, their body. And so basically, while I guess the intent somehow is that, Diana and Trevor are having sex, Diana is having sex by Trevor's using somebody else's body. So it's, I don't know what the right terminology is here, but that actually I think is far more icky. But it all is, I think, all the same. So, now I remember exactly what happened here. So I'm very happy that I wanted us to see this immediately off the top. That way we can talk about it as it happens. Because, and then there were other things that were interesting that Emma said there that we can get into while we're talking about the reaction of the episode. So have that in your mind, David. But yeah, I'm glad that you and I both immediately thought back to 1984, because that was... Ooh, that was an interesting time. Mm-hmm. Okay, so with that being said, we can I now get into what we usually do before we get into the actual episode reaction itself. We are going to get into the comments of sorry, something fell behind. What the hell happened? Something tumbled over. We're gonna get into the actual comments of the episode that we did last time, which was Tahiti, and then any other comments we may have received in the time since then. So, David, let's go ahead and get to it.
Okay. First comments are from Silva Surfa. First one says, "Hello, my fellow agents. So looking forward to enjoying this episode with you. Not only is it fantastic, we get Bill Paxton, and we get the introduction to one of my favorite characters, Trip."
Yeah, we didn't talk too much about Trip because, I mean, Trip was not really, I mean, he was kind of there. I don't know, we talked in a little bit of how, some of the comments that he said perhaps may or may not have been, like, too much, whatever. He was just mostly there. But, like, again, like, he doesn't really become much of a presence until after Hydra is revealed, because he basically kind of slots into Ward's spot, because Ward ends up going with Garrett, and at that point, we all know that he's Hydra, but eventually Trip ends up replacing his spot on the team, and he definitely brought a new energy and levity, but that happens in later episodes. In this episode, there wasn't really much to say, but we all love Trip. He brings a nice energy, of course, to the show. Next one.
Same person. If you didn't know, Trip was originally written to be Hydra along with Garrett, but BJ Britt is just so damn charismatic. Damn charismatic and awesome in real life that the producers of the show kept him on as the amazing character we come to love. Which I believe that too, because like as soon as he showed up, I'm like, oh, was there a chance that he would have been Hydra?
That's interesting. Yeah. No, I'm sure I thought the exact same way too, because like I wouldn't, I guess looking back on it, because, and I still wasn't sure, because I know that in the episode, when we find out that Garrett is Hydra, I know that at the very end, they have him like going freak berserk mode, like how freaking dare you, traitor, or whatever. Mm-hmm. But you can never really be too sure in the end.
Yeah.
But I guess I can totally buy into it. But you know what? I have to really just say something. This show does not get enough credit for a lot of things, as we've obviously been talking about. But specifically in this case, they have had to write themselves out of a corner several times. And they've had to also just... This isn't the first time. They always change the damn plan. I did not know this, because I feel like for the most part his introduction is done so well. I guess I could see it going one way or the other, but I can totally see their minds being changed because of the actor's performance. And by the way, they did this several times. I don't know if you know this, but when we get to season 5, when Jeff Ward comes on here as Deke Shaw, and I think you probably do know this, David, because I think maybe Jeff Ward did talk about this when you went to D23 and you saw him on a panel, but I think he said it there, but it's been long documented that Jeff Ward was only supposed to be on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for one episode. Mm-hmm. He was actually supposed to play Virgil, which was the character that greets, is knowing of the prophecy and is supposed to greet them and take them to the surface. But Virgil ends up getting killed by one of the roaches, one of the Vrel Nexians. But that Virgil, but the actor that plays Virgil ended up being somebody else. Jeff Ward was supposed to play Virgil, but they liked him so much that they actually, you know what, you're too good. We want to have you for this character that we're actually, instead of having for like a few scenes in the beginning of this one episode, we're going to have you for the whole season. And then they brought him back for 2 more seasons. Mm-hmm. So this stuff happens quite a bit here. And I actually did not know this, Silva Surfer, but I'm really happy that you're contributing to a lot of these conversations, because I didn't also know. I want to say it was you, right? Or maybe it was somebody else that was mentioned about the rewriting that was happening with Will, the astronaut, in season 3. Again, they do this show so well where you can see them going in so many different directions, but I hardly ever feel, if honestly sometimes ever notice, when they've changed their minds on which way they're going to go. Mm-hmm. Sometimes things do feel, I think to me, the single instance where I feel things changed at the last minute and you can tell more than any other place, I think would have to be the last few episodes of season 6, which conclude Izel and Sarge and then transition into the Chronicoms taking over for the time travel thing. I want to say it, but again, as I mentioned before, there are conflicting reports whether they knew at the time that I have to think that season 7 did not. I know Jeff Loeb and other people were saying that, oh no, they renewed S.H.I.E.L.D. for the last 2 seasons at the same time, but I know that they shot them as if they were one season. But at the same time, I don't think they were expecting that 7th season until they were already like halfway through filming season 6, because at that point, they still hadn't quite finished writing out the show. But I think a big tell of how you know that season 7 did not necessarily come at the same time as 6 is because Ian DeCastiger could not be in most of season 7. He was maybe only in 2 to 3, maybe I think it wasn't 1 or 2 episodes at the very end. He was gone that whole season because he had scheduling conflicts. He had already booked some other show, but he didn't. You see how the time, and again, it's all just like interesting, the timing of it all, and it doesn't matter all that much. But when S.H.I.E.L.D. got renewed, they had got him just in time for him to be in in most of the episodes for season 6. But when season 7 was renewed, they couldn't quite work it out. And Jeff and Marissa said in the interviews themselves that at the time of the finale that they did as much with Fitz as they were able to, which meant that they didn't really have much room to do anything else with him because of how unavailable he was at the time that season 7 would be filming. So yeah, it And even then, I will say, that's a pretty big deal for one of the main characters, one of your key characters, to be gone for basically the majority of the season. And yet, I would argue that even with his absence, the rest of the cast, didn't skip a beat. For one thing, yeah, you had Coulson that was gone, but not Coulson. You had Fitz that was not going to be there that season, but you got Coulson right back in there to help smooth things over. That helped a lot, I would say, personally. And then you also had a new cast member with Anver playing Jesus, what's his name? Sousa. So he that all happened in there. But the whole point of this my comments here is that they do an amazing job, especially when the fact that while I was watching this show for the first time, I couldn't even tell you that these changes were. I think they wanted to do more with BJ Britt. They wanted to do more with Trip, but they knew going into season 2 that they weren't going to have him for the show for a long time. He had to be on some other show, I want to say. So while going into season 2, you will notice that he doesn't really have much of anything to do. He doesn't really have an arc. He's just kind of a presence, and they kind of use him as, unfortunately, the sacrificial lamb, because he's the one cast member that's not going to be able to stay here because of other obligations. And you can make whatever comment you want about that, but that was the reality. Like, they weren't going to be able to use him, so I don't think that they either didn't have the time, or they just thought to themselves, well, we're not going to have this character for that long, so we can't necessarily write an arc for him, and he seems to work just fine as he is. That's okay. And not every character has to have an arc, and especially when they already know they're not gonna have him around for a long time. I can get that, but people, I'm sure, have issues with it. So, and then also the same thing with Ghost Rider. He joined the team for 8 episodes. They got him back for one more appearance after that, but yeah, I should say, I'm sorry, I keep losing my train of thought. Joey Gutierrez is a character we see in season 3. He's one of the Inhumans. Interestingly, we should mention this, and I'm sure Emma will say this when she releases her next video. I think he was one of the only main LGBTQ characters on the show. That's really interesting because there's a lot of characters that have come on the show, and very so few of them happen to belong to that community, but they wanted to put that out there. But he, I think, was planned for something more, but then his exit, I think, to me anyway, felt the most abrupt. Because he kind of that one to me was the example where he was literally written out of the show. I think he also had somewhere else to be, or maybe he didn't want to be there anymore. Whatever it was the case, they made his character no longer appear because he felt betrayed that they were being kept in the base because Hive was they found out that Hive can sway Inhumans, and so that, I don't know if you remember any of this. I'm sorry, I'm just talking out of my ass here. But this is all stuff that happened in season 3. But anyway, just wanted to put that comment out there. But thank you so much, Silver Surfer, for contributing to these conversations. I didn't know this information myself. Really interesting to know. All right, David, next one.
Yeah, last one from Silva. I'm an old school dork, grew up in the 70s and 80s, and loved 616 Marvel Comics, specifically the years between 1961 through 1996. Lorelei is from the best run of Thor comics, Walt Simonson's run of the Mighty Thor 337 through 382, and I was thrilled to see her teased here. Next episode is so good, and I might be a little harsh on some of the modern critics of it, but I'll try to keep it nice as possible. Yeah. Sorry.
And then Jack Dubs immediately responds with, "I won't be so kind on Yes Man." Sorry, let's well get that in right now.
Yeah.
So that's why I began this episode specifically, because there is, I think, a more palpable and obvious division of thought in terms of what happens in the events that are carried out with this episode. I wanted to be very forthright with you. I don't think this is one of my favorite episodes of even the season, but I always enjoyed it. But I do understand where different people are coming from with what they're bringing to the episode and why there may be some issues with it. It didn't even occur to me, actually, when Emma was actually again, when I first saw the episode, a lot of these things didn't occur to me. But now, when you look back on it, yeah, it is interesting how Lorelai can only affect men regardless of their orientation. I explain it away in the mythology because of how the character was written. I want to say I'm not even sure that was even a thought that occurred to whoever created that character, much less in the show. I'm sure it's just magic, I think, because Asgardians, she is magic. Asgardians are magic, and so that's how I rationalize it. But as far as like a creative standpoint is concerned, I can get why that might like rub some audiences the wrong way.
No, yeah, they definitely could have been a different process of it all. They could have just said like, she just uses magic, it only works on men, just a biological kind of thing, it doesn't matter. But then we'll have to be getting into more details that like
you're explaining it even more and more, and you don't want to do that.
Just say like, and then from a creative standpoint, it would have just been funnier, honestly, and better if they would have been like, anyone who finds her attractive will be under her spell, and then maybe you could have like a little joke of like,
if it was written today, that's how it would have been done. I don't think they would even do this today. I think if it was written today, they would have just said, anyone that finds women attractive
or her attractive, will be under her spell, and then maybe it would have been a joke of either Sky or Gemma probably like falling under her spell or something like that. It's just like, oh dang, it's like that would have been hilarious. I think maybe Sky, but
I mean, you never that's how they could have. But again, this was you got to remember that when this was written, this was still before things really became much more social, and I think people became, I guess, more willing to listen to others' points of view about situations like these. So, but thank you, Silva, for bringing your enthusiasm to the character, especially with understanding and sharing more with us about who you are. I mean, I think it gives us a lot of information that you grew up on these comics. I mean, that's a long run from 61 to 96, so a lot of these characters, I'm sure. And to have a character that you grew up with being on a TV show like this, especially Lorelai, which I'm not sure how. I mean, in comparison to other heroes or other characters, I don't know how well known she is. I'm sure she had some run-ins with Loki in the comics. I have to think anyway, but regardless of it, I'm sure it was a big deal to have that character on the big screen, but on the screen, on the small screen, or any kind of screen representation. And I'm sure that meant a lot. So again, we don't want to discount or disqualify anyone's feelings on this episode. But I think, to me, I feel like this is the first truly divisive episode of the show amongst its actual fans. I'm not talking about the people who've never given it a chance or those that gave up halfway through the first 10 episodes. Now talking about the fan base itself, this is the one that I feel has the most division. So all right, next one.
Yeah. Next ones are from Jack Dubs. First one is, had Foggy not chickened out, we would have seen the origins of Tahiti Project in Captain Marvel movie. In the Captain Marvel movie, there is a deleted scene shown in one of the early trailers for Captain Marvel that would have shown a more mortally wounded Carol Danvers being revived through a blood transfusion by Jude Law's Jan Rog. I think that it stands to reason to presume that Nick Fury would have heard of the seemingly magical healing properties of Kree blood and from Carol, read the SSR file that documented the retrieval and storage of a Kree corpse back at the end of World War II, and decided to use said Kree corpses as part of his and Coulson's fledgling Avengers initiative.
There's a deleted scene shown in one of the early trailers that would have shown a mortal being revived through a blood transfusion. That's an interesting observation. I don't quite recall this myself. Then again, whenever that happened, I don't remember seeing this. But this came out so long ago at this point, and it came out at a time where, I mean, I really wasn't paying too much attention to Captain Marvel. No offense, I was just more. But go ahead.
Well, also, like, I understand why it's a deleted scene. I don't think it's because. I mean, I'm saying that Jack Dubs thinks it's because of S.H.I.E.L.D. or anything like that, but I think the reason why is because there was a scene where they were trying to trick Jude Law's character. Want some Kree or no? What is it? They're called Kree, right? The ones that shapeshift.
Yes. No, the Skrulls.
Skrulls. That's what it is. One of the Skrulls was pretending to be Carol, And one of the questions was, how were you saved? And it's like blood transfusion. Whose blood? And Jude Law's character is a Kree, so I think that kind of like works. It was Jude Law's blood that helped heal her and become stronger, basically. So technically, it's in that, like the information is in, but it's not like an actual scene that we see.
Yeah, but let's just pretend that was something that we're actually going to do. That would be a pretty cool connection, and you know what, Feige, that would have been enough. That would have been enough of a connection. But you see, instances like these are what really get a lot of S.H.I.E.L.D. fans to get all conspiracy theorist on us, and maybe not so much considering how Feige acts. But certainly the feeling is among a lot of S.H.I.E.L.D. fans that literally every decision that Feige has made, there were so many opportunities for connections that you didn't even have to say, it could have just been a connection like that, like how this would have been equivalent to what happened in The Winter Soldier when Nick Fury was escaping after his vehicle flipped over after encountering the Winter Soldier. He used a little zappy thing to cut a hole in the street and he escaped. That was an invention that Fitz made, and he says that on the show. We'll see it in a few episodes. Mm-hmm. But that would have been... That's all you need to show that these things are in the same place. But the absence of that makes you wonder, did he go out of his way to just not allow that to happen? Mm-hmm. Again, at every turn. To me, again, in Avengers Endgame, there was supposed to be Daniel Whitehall's face. Reed Diamond, even the actor that plays the character, said that his face was supposed to appear on a hologram or something in a Hydra little thing when the Avengers are looking at that time, but they took it out of the movie. Mm-hmm. Why would you do that unless you want to not give any kind of value to the show? And even to this day, they canonized all of the Marvel Netflix shows. Now when you go on Disney Plus, when you see the Marvel timeline, all of those shows that Kevin Feige, by the way, spent years ignoring himself as well, all of a sudden, they're now canon. Mm-hmm. But notice the show that we're talking about here is still not considered that. So there's a lot of ammunition for people to say Feige has a personal thing against this show. Because at this point, how do you explain all of this? But yeah, that would have been fun. It would have been cool. But also I can understand in that instance, I think they probably changed some elements of it. But to be fair, I personally still don't really get how her powers work. The movies didn't really do a good job of explaining that. So, again, I feel like the only other thing connected to S.H.I.E.L.D. that ever specifically brought up events that have happened on the show was Inhumans. And that is the outbreak of Terra Genesis and the New Inhumans. Again, but there was plenty of opportunity. S.H.I.E.L.D. and the creators of S.H.I.E.L.D. very much looked at what the movies are talking about and whatever they were exploring and they were incorporating. They used those movies as inspiration to fuel what they would, base their story arcs on. Mm-hmm. And I think, to me, in Season 3 and in Season 4, there was some interesting commentary about, the fact that there was an outbreak. And humans were basically, again, as I say, Inhumans were becoming so public that the government were having international, debates about them. It reminds me of how they treated the X-Men in the X-Men films. They... In the sense that there were these new form of people and there were all these questions of what to do about them. At the same time that Season 3 and Season 4 of S.H.I.E.L.D. was happening, there's a little movie called Captain America Civil War that was about the Sokovia Accords. And I think we all thought at the time probably would have fueled a lot of the commentary that was being said in the film if they had taken the opportunity was there to like say, oh, by the way, it's not just superheroes, like all these superheroes that showed up, but at the same time, we have all these Inhumans that are popping up all over the world too. They didn't care. They had plenty of chances to connect to the show, and the show was bending over backward to make it as easy for them as possible, and at every turn the movies didn't care to. Sorry for that long rant. But thank you very much for the comment. Yeah. Jack Dubs. You have another one from Jack Dubs?
Yeah. It is quite ironic the reviewers for IGN and AV Club aren't reviewing the show based on what it is, but rather on what they wish the show was. Massive budgets, A-list cameos, and connections to the movies that make the show essential viewing. The problem is, when the Disney Plus MCU shows eventually showed up and gave us all of that, it suddenly became obvious that just how hollow and constricting such a setup truly was. When we got the explosive set-piece action sequences, people just kind of shrugged. The A-list cameos became so commonplace that viewers stopped noticing, and the connections to the movies became so much of a hindrance, the fans actually started to resent, 1, how much it boxed the writers in creatively, 2, having to watch 6 or 8 weeks of a TV show in order to understand what was going on in the movie.
That's another thing. Ooh.
Most hilariously, the ways the movies undid, downplayed, or just ignored events in those Disney Plus shows because the two sides weren't talking to one another. And now what do people seem to want? MCU TV shows that are their own thing and aren't bogged down with too many connections to the greater MCU. Basically, they want Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Yeah.
Jack Dubs, you get it. 110%. You get exactly what... I mean, that is a really good breakdown of what the problem is with current Marvel. And by the way, I can't necessarily speak to whether or not you would agree with all of our opinions. That's not fair to say in any situation, because David and I don't even agree all the time. We have, in fact, I was going to direct you that we, on Red Spotlight, just recently did a review of Deadpool and Wolverine alongside, by the way, the stuff that came out of Marvel at Comic-Con and Doom and RDJ. If you want to listen to that, it's literally on the same feed. I believe we called it Jumping the Stark. It's our most recent episode. And it's almost about 3 hours, but there are timestamps if you want to go straight to the conversation. I broke it down if you want to go specifically to those sections. But in that case, there was a lot to say about, our feelings on the film, but more specifically about where Marvel is. And we've been having this conversation for a very long time. By the way, Deadpool and Wolverine, David and I didn't have the same feelings about it at all. I would say that I agree with him that there were moments of great humor and great jokes. In fact, one of the, and I don't want to spoil Deadpool and Wolverine, but there was this amazing sequence I forgot to mention, missing scene, or line I should say, where Logan punched Pyro, saying that not everybody gets a speech. So that was a great moment right there. So again, that's a film that I don't really see as a movie. It had some really negative things to say overall about it, but there were pieces of it that I actually really liked. And you want to hear more about our thoughts on it, you can go to that video and that podcast. But what you just said there, I think really breaks down a lot of big problems that Marvel has been having. And I think, and again, a lot of those Disney Plus shows, David and I liked in the very beginning. We talked about them, we had some really positive things, but as time went on, things began to degrade, and we were noticing in real time, there were big issues happening. I think to me, if I'm going to say, what was the moment those Disney Plus shows, as short-lived as they have been, mind you, it's only been a few years, but if there was an equivalent of them jumping the shark, that moment in Miss Marvel, I think, broke everything. Literally, for a lot of us, for so many reasons. And if you want to hear those specific reasons, again, on our podcast feed, go back into the archives. This was a few years ago, but we broke it down. And I'm sure they're even, you don't have to go on the podcast feed, on CastBox or on Spotify or iTunes, but, or Apple Podcasts, I should say, but on YouTube, the episodes it's here. We didn't, by the way, I should warn you that we've only been doing video really for 10 or 11 months, around, give or take, okay? But before then, and this would be one of the episodes, it would just be like a picture and then our audio. So you listen to it however you want to. But the point is, a lot of things that you just said right there, is what we've been saying for many, many years. I always thought it was rather, I think to me, one of the biggest decisions that has proven to be disastrous for them is that they announced that at the same time they were going to be making 3 to 4 movies a year, they were also going to be making 3 to 4 TV shows a year, but they weren't really TV shows. They were just long movies cut up into 6 different parts. Mm-hmm. They marketed them as TV shows, but they weren't really TV shows. And should I not remind everybody that about a year ago, they announced that, you know what, guys? We kind of messed up, and we're now going to make the shows with a show Bible with rules, and we're going to actually test the pilots before we order a whole series on them. That should tell you alone how ill-equipped they were to even do TV in the first place, which is so stupid because, by the way, I get that Kevin Feige may not like Jeff Loeb personally, and Jeff Loeb may have done some things financially or creatively that just don't gel well with Kevin Feige, but at the very least, I thought it was a big mistake that they had a whole television unit called Marvel Entertainment. Or I should say Marvel Television, that made shows like this and the Netflix shows. They had a whole unit, and instead of just, and again, you don't have to keep the same people. I mean, I would keep a few, but you can put your own people in there to make that way that you can Feige can still be on top. But they didn't do that. What they did is they destroyed that entire division. They fired all those people, and instead of giving the TV people to do TV shows, they had the movie people do TV shows, which is also just kind of weird how they failed at that, because when you think about the MCU movies, they're not as much films as they are episodes in a TV series. One of the main things about the Infinity Saga is that altogether it feels like less of a film franchise and more of just a long season in this, because everything interweaves and builds. And it's funny how those people couldn't do real TV shows. For a lot of the reasons that we've already mentioned. But then again, you also bring it up yourself in that same comment that part of their mistake was expecting that people should watch all of this in order to somehow keep up with the movies. Which, David, I want to say, you and I were one of the first few people immediately when this was announced back in 2019 that wasn't going to work out very well. Mm-hmm. That they're not supposed to do that, because when you do that, you begin to mess with things. The overall issue with the MCU right now is that they did a whole phase of these disparate, disconnected things, which I'm not opposed to, but the problem is they let people think that the same rules applied. They let people think that everything was supposed to interconnect and that everything was building to a story, and it wasn't. Mm-hmm. And it took them years to, I mean, I'm not even sure they had never even said anything. That's the problem. But it took fans years to realize, wait a minute here. What are we building to? Yeah. Oh, we were never building to anything in the first place. And what really they should have just said, flat out, guys, this phase is new. We're not building to anything. We're gonna just try individual projects, which I think that's still not what they did, though, because they still tried to connect things and then they went nowhere. Mm-hmm. Still. So go ahead, David.
No, yeah, I think Peter mentioned that in the podcast.
Yes,
they weren't gonna even make an Avengers movie for a while until they kind of worked out some of the stuff that they want to do and everything. But that just went to shit now, especially with Comic-Con came out. But then also, it's also sucks still because I really thought they were going to build up to something when we saw WandaVision, the first shows that came out. And I was kind of oh, okay, they can do something good here. WandaVision, she went to a character arc in the show, but then they kind of showed that she kind of is going to go evil, which was fine at the moment. Because I thought, okay, maybe they'll make her a good guy again, or maybe she'll die, who knows. But I really thought they were going to build her up to an Avengers level villain. But then we get Multiverse of Madness. And what's worse is that you have to watch WandaVision in order to kind of understand what was going on in Multiverse of Madness.
But then Sam Raimi and his team said, well, we didn't really watch WandaVision. And again, look, Sam Raimi is a creative. He is an auteur. I don't necessarily feel even okay. Why would you admit that? Well, they should have just don't give the fans ammunition like that when you admit that. Well, wasn't there a situation in She-Hulk, by the way, during the whole She-Hulk era that someone came out and admitted something that was pretty bad? Remember when the finale happened? I forget what was the story there, but there was a situation where somebody on the show that worked on it admitted something. And then we were all like, why would you say that out loud? Why would you admit that? And that's happened several times, mind you. That should give you some really good idea of like how many bad headlines there have been for Marvel on the last few years. But you know what? Like, I feel like that alone was really bad enough. Where it's like, yeah, it wouldn't have been a problem if Marvel Studios themselves didn't make people believe that there was reason to watch WandaVision. And then when you watch Multiverse of Madness, they're like, oh, there was no reason to watch WandaVision. Mm-hmm. The people who made the movie didn't care enough to watch it. Why should I? That's kind of what happened there. Mm-hmm. I blame more Kevin Feige than Sam Raimi, because I feel like if Kevin Feige really believed this, then he probably should have made him watch it. Mm-hmm. But he didn't care enough to do that.
Yeah. And I mean, Sam Raimi had like a whole bunch of other things to worry about. For one thing, figuring out how to shoot a movie without a script. And
that's the part that people online don't talk about enough. All those things that Jack Dub says, they're true. And they're part of what's bringing the ship down. But the whole process of how they make things in the first place, I feel is the biggest contributing factor to it. The fact that they're largely shooting everything. Forget just how visually uninteresting it makes everything look as a result of how quickly they're shooting it and how they're inside the whole time. But the main thing is the writing. And I think people have caught on that the writing has been a problem for many years at this point. Why is the writing a problem? Because they shoot without a script, or they shoot with something that they just change on the spot. And these stories have come out through many different titles at this point. So, yeah, that altogether kind of encapsulates that. So for any of those who are watching this and want to hear more thoughts on this whole thing, we just did a whole episode about that on Red Spotlight number 486, Jumping the Stark. It's on this feed. We would love for you guys to listen to that and also leave some comments on there and see. And again, we don't necessarily have the same view on everything involving that, and I'd like to hear what you guys would make of it if you want to hear more of that comic book, I guess, kind of content. So there's that. All right, what do we have next?
Last one from Gary Marshall. Trip is not the first person to hit on Simmons, as in the Whale episode, Professor Randolph says about Gemma, "You're easily the most beautiful thing I've seen in 1,000 years. I guess there are different standards for humans and Narskarians. And regarding the team as a family, have the critics not watched the previous episodes where they have been countless examples of how they are?"
Yeah, really interesting observation there, Gary Marshall. I'm sure Professor Randolph didn't necessarily, care one way or the other how much older he was than Gemma. I think that the kind of character that he is kind of, I think, sold it in that part. But more importantly, this whole situation of like these critics that we've been taking the time to read, not really understanding it. I mean, I don't know how else we explain why they're seeing things that we aren't, quite frankly. And I'm happy that I'm not like crazy or alone in feeling like when I read these reviews, they're not getting it or something just isn't translating, because there've been several examples of like them saying the show is missing elements that are very clearly and evidently there in the actual text. So, yeah, I know it's not necessarily fun to hear these criticisms, but I read them for the point. From my point of view, I feel like we learn a lot in reading what they value. I think what they value is revealed in reading their thoughts, and let's see what they think now. Because guess what? The thing that they wanted the show to do was to bring characters from the comics, right? Well, we're gonna watch an episode right now that has a comic book character. I wonder if that changes anything in the perceptions of these people who have been saying we need characters on this show. Let's see. So right now we're going to go ahead and begin our episode reaction to Yes Men.
Agent Ward and I have been having sex.
And if it's a problem,
I'll end it.
Oh, that's the other thing I forgot to mention. Oh my god. This is the culmination of May and Ward's whole, I guess you could say, romantic entanglement. And again, I feel like part of what brings the episode down for some audiences depends on whether or not you are invested in that. I don't think we count in that company. I don't think we're not invested in that.
Hey, darling. Gal like you can have any man you want.
I can understand it in recent episodes they were trying anyway to say that there may be some feelings that Ward and May might have toward each other, but the show never really did anything with it. This episode is, I think, them. I don't know, David, do you think that this episode, from what you remember anyway, do you think this was like meant to be a natural conclusion to that? Or maybe they realized it wasn't working out and they used this episode to just kind of like, sweep it away? I don't know. It's a really interesting question.
Yeah. I would say maybe they kind of just wanted to throw it away. I don't know.
Because this feels like this is what this episode does.
Yeah.
It throws it away completely. It never brings it up ever again. That's not true. Well, there are moments here and there where Ward alludes to a closeness of happening, sometimes for humor, but sometimes for like, to get back at May or whatever. So, but then I think this all, to me, I don't know.
You and your men now serve me.
I love the little voice effect that they do with Lorelai. I think that's really cool. And then also this effect right here when she kicks him out of the way. She punches him out of the way, right? Remember this part right here?
No.
When or here. We'll be together till the end.
The end.
Who are you?
That's funny to me. You see, now I'm thinking the other way. I wonder if maybe, I don't know. I've always felt like them introducing Ward and May as something romantic was because they were trying some things out. But I don't know. Do you think it's possible they did that so that it would like hurt more the betrayal, specifically with May? Because I know that from this point going forward, when...
No! What did I say?
Damn it, every time.
Grant is revealed to be Hydra, May specifically has like a deep hatred of Ward. More, I think, than the other ones, if not because of that relationship that they had, in a way. I don't know. I think going forward, whenever they bring it up, I think they use it to good effect. But while we've been watching these episodes, I don't think they've been doing that much with it. So it makes me question if they thought this was something that was... If they wrote this with the understanding that they would use it a certain way, or if they were just trying things out, or maybe this was an executive like that told them to write an element like this and they picked these two characters. I don't know, honestly.
It could also just be what they mentioned later on. Ward says it's like May is the only one that I was gonna have trouble like getting past the wall.
They do mention that, yeah.
So he just went with it and just went. Probably having sex with her is the only way I can kind of connect with her, get to know her more a little bit. What I can use against her.
It is if you're here to bust me out. The warden has extended house arrest. Ugh, awful accent.
So that backs up what I was saying, is that maybe they wrote this with the intent of it like being a dirty thing in the first place. sex instead of an actual romantic thing that anybody would feel towards. Because again, we should say that in the moment, I don't know how many Ward May shippers there were. I don't think there were many,
I don't think
if
there were
any.
any.
No.
It's so stupid to go in there alone.
Hey, there's no point in doing that now.
By the way, we should mention what we've been seeing on the screen. I love how Simmons is like so mothering her and like, get off of your feet. You're not going anywhere. You're gonna stay there. These are the first interactions that we're seeing Skye have with her friends after almost dying. So she looks so much better than last time.
Mm-hmm.
Again, shout out to that makeup department from last week. They did a really good job making her look fucking dead.
They did something to him. He needs help.
He's past help. He was there with you, Skye. Could have protected you.
Oh my god.
He let this happen
I love
to
that little
you.
thing in the background. We just heard a hint of Skye's theme, and then it jumped to the Centipede theme that they also used for Garrett, they also used for Reyna, and they also used for Mike Peterson, the dun dun dun. Shout out. Want to notice Bear McCreary's music whenever we notice it. I love how they did that flip. And I say that, David, because I just rewatched an episode of S.H.I.E.L.D. from later on, and I didn't realize this, but Bear McCreary, while Ghost Rider and Quake are on screen together, they have the Ghost Rider theme transition into the main Daisy theme. And I had noticed that before, and it's a really cool transition.
Nice.
So
he does a great job at doing that, blending in his themes. God of War Ragnarok does that so fucking well.
I'm sure it does.
I mean, there's a theme in the first God of War 2018 with the Dark Elves, and then in Ragnarok there's a theme for the Light Elves. And I mean, I know you probably just don't know what I'm talking about, but like,
no, but I'm listening. Yeah,
either way. But and then there's a theme for Kratos, the main character. You know, and at one point, you know, you're attacking the Light Elves in Ragnarok, and you're just hearing their theme all the time, and then all of a sudden the Dark Elves and the Light Elves are fighting each other.
Mm-hmm.
But Kratos is stuck in the middle of it, and he's literally by himself. It's not with his son or the other side characters and everything. And he melded all three themes together, and it's fucking amazing. Like the transition and everything. It's incredible. Oh my god.
I don't know if you noticed there, but they were in the lab. A couple of things I wanted to just mention. Did you notice how much different the lighting was in the lab to kind of reflect the mood and how things have changed in the show? It was like really bright in the first episodes, but it was just not that bright in this instance. It's kind of dark. And then seeing Simmons look at Fitz's reaction, saying that, you know, him just looking down, saying that everything in that room was peculiar. It's kind of a haunting experience going in there because it's still weird, the whole situation. And then here we have what is seemingly the final interaction between Sitwell and Coulson.
How was Tahiti?
It sucked.
At this point, Coulson's done.
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell is happening here? Because it's bad enough he had to fight for them to give him a file, but that file still didn't specify, oh, by the way, we used alien biology to repair you. Like, what?
And in London, they herald the arrival of an Asgardian.
Thor.
Not sure. Either way, S.H.I.E.L.D. wants us to be the welcome wagon.
Okay, fine. No cause for concern.
So in this episode, in the background, things are moving ahead. Coulson's like, you know, making some moves, trying to figure out, you know, trying to get the Fury. He wants to get the Fury because he wants to talk to him about this because, I'm sorry, it's very haunting. For most of what we're here watching, the aesthetic of it, and then also this feeling almost kind of like a mission of the week, makes it feel a little bit more like the first 10 episodes. And so I think I can understand where people come from when they say like this episode kind of like a little bit breaks the momentum of Trax and Tahiti.
How close?
But at the same time, I want to be clear here. I think it also does work as a little bit of a breather.
Yeah.
In many ways, it's kind of the calm before the storm,
Yeah, it's a good distraction in a sense,
Yes, yeah.
I mean, I love this. I love that we have Sif here, especially because she doesn't get utilized in the movies at all.
At all. That's right. Yeah, I didn't even mention Sif, but that's right. This is her first appearance here. Yeah. This is this is like a really good connection here.
I love it.
And it's, to me anyway.
She's on our side.
Stand down. She's a friendly.
You are up, Shield.
Yeah.
I am Lady Sif of Asgard. Your world is in grave danger.
This even happening really kind of like justified them having a show placed in the MCU because they could do stuff like this. And if Kevin Feige and the people at Marvel Studios were more willing to, they could have had more episodes like this with other kinds of characters who we barely ever see can come on a show like this. And mind you, that still can happen to this very day on Disney Plus. They can call it Agents of S.W.O.R.D. or whatever, but they can utilize all of these different characters and actors that we hardly ever see for years at a time. It's really interesting. Coulson never really says why he doesn't really come to May about his suspicions, but I don't know, do you get the impression that he is getting a little bit sus about her? Like he's kind of like getting a little bit like, because he's keeping this very close to the cards, and he's never had a reason to not. He has gone to May in the past, and May has kind of like steered him the wrong way. I wonder when he began to feel like he couldn't tell May about these things, because realistically, she is the closest person to him.
Lorelei. 600 years ago, she used her powers to wreak havoc across the 9 realms.
Man, I love the little bit of continuity that we had here with like Sif. Like, what? You're alive? Thought you were dead. We were told you were dead. That was a big deal. Which, by the way, is the only instance they care to mention how big of a deal that was, because after the Avengers in the movies, Coulson who?
Yeah.
Never brought up ever again.
Men have an inherent weakness we do not share.
I can't imagine what she's talking about.
And women can rule your land, can they not?
You'd be the first.
We might have the first pretty soon. Yeah, right? Elena Satine is the actress that plays Lorelei. I thought she did a really good job with this character.
Why is this woman wearing my clothes, Dwayne?
Who's this Dwayne she speaks of?
It's me.
I love how she's like stirring the pot here. Deep.
Oh my god.
There's no... It's so sad because like she's literally destroying like lives right here. Like, how do you come back from this? I think he actually, well, you'll see right here. I think he kills her right here. Like, look.
Too much noise.
I mean, a body full of shit. He did kill her. Oh my god.
And the others, have any of them been here recently?
Rest easy, Philip, son of Cole.
Philip, son of Cole.
I love how she, I'm sorry, it's a cool name. Philip, son of Cole.
That's funny.
I love it.
But also, a cool thing to ask. It's like, he wants more information. And it's like, this is kind of the closest he's going to get about what the heck that thing was.
Seriously, yeah.
No, I always say if I need a gun, I'll take one. We'll need these. When you're up against people who are being controlled, sometimes it's hard to distinguish friend from foe.
I didn't know at the time. Nobody could have ever foreseen this, but that was a direct, like, basically shout out to Bahrain.
Yeah.
When you're up against people who are being controlled, it's hard to distinguish friend from foe, and that's in direct. That's literally just. We didn't know it at the time, but she's talking about Bahrain and her having to do what she had to do in that situation. And again, it's also a really good bit of continuity because they say, like, but I thought you said, I love this right here. And she was beautiful.
How many men does she have in there? Have you seen the suspect?
Yes, we have. And she's beautiful.
They probably should have known better than to just do that. But May hardly ever picks up a gun. And you know she means serious business when she has to pick one up. But notice that in the show, she only ever does use weapons almost immediately when she realizes they're up against powered individuals. Every single instance. Remember what we said back in Repairs a few weeks ago with the girl that they thought had telekinetic abilities, but in fact was Tobias as a ghost or whatever that was making all these things happen. So I love a little bit of continuity there. It's really, yeah, just like looking back on it, like, whoa, that's cool. By the way, it's always really questionable. I just wanted to say, if you are one that believes that S.H.I.E.L.D. is in the main continuity of the MCU, notice how Lorelai specifically mentions that Odin is asking for Lorelai to be captured again, right? Odin right now is in a freaking nursing home. It's Loki posing as Odin right now in the timeline. This is after the Dark World, remember? So it makes you wonder, did he really put, not that they're ever going to do anything with her, but in your own headcanon, do you think like Loki really put her back in prison, or he just let her go somewhere else?
Well, he needed anyone really to like stay as far away from him as possible. So maybe he let her go, distracted Sif.
Yeah, that's true.
Try to come up with other schemes and everything.
That's true. Yeah, this could have just been a ploy to keep her on the run, keep her on the go, you know?
You need some backup over here.
That is not what you need.
Especially because if you notice, Sif wasn't in Ragnarok. She specifically was off-world when the whole situation happened. So, yeah, I think he suspected, I think he feared that Sif would be one of the ones to see through the disguise, so he constantly kept her away from Asgard. But if somehow Lorelai was captured and she was in prison, I wish she's fucking dead now, because I don't think those prisoners were let go. Unless Hela, when she took over Asgard in Ragnarok, maybe she let the villains go. All the prisoners that were in the vault. So, not that this really matters, but unless you're holding out hope that they ever use Lorelai, there's that. But that would mean that you'd hold out hope that they would ever refer to this show in the future in the MCU. So there's that too.
Similar to the Berserker staff.
But it presents its own set of countless unknown variables.
Got a couple hours.
Yeah.
I love how they constantly just like throw impossible situations at Fitz and Simmons. It reminded me, and I'm sorry I'm talking about a different episode, but there is this moment in the first episode of season 5, or no, the second episode, where May and Coulson are like, and Simmons, they all realize they're in the future. And then they look to Simmons for like, what do we do? And she's like, well, I'm a biologist, but sure, I can invent time travel. Just give me a second. So they constantly always look to her to like fix everything. But I love this interaction right here, because this is the first time she's like,
not an option.
Not just standing up for himself,
Why?
but just like challenging her boss.
I don't need to explain to you the benefits of this drug. You've experienced them firsthand.
No. That's an order.
Right here, even more.
That's not a good enough reason.
It's like, ooh.
The close up of his face too. I think you even hear like a like,
right?
To save lives, given Ward's recent situation, we should.
2 men laid down their lives in a compound rigged with explosives to keep this drug hidden. We still don't know why. Until we do, until we speak with Fury and get some answers, that drug and its mysteries stay in-house.
He's not wrong. He's really not wrong, because, I mean, literally, 2 guys willingly just agreed to die.
Yeah.
And they blew up the entire facility just to keep it a secret. I mean, Fury is the only one he knows that knows about the facility and the drug. So, by the way, an on-location shot. Yay. I mean, cool, whatever. But it really is funny. It's just a funny little thing. Like, what would an Asgardian think of Las Vegas? And mistake it for an actual palace, because they're in Caesar's palace. But also Simmons isn't wrong either. I think where she's coming from, I can definitely understand. I think it's an interesting bit of development. I mean, this is not the same Simmons from the first 2 episodes. Like, she had to build up her way to this moment here, but like, good for her.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are. How do we feel about this, David?
I mean, any sex scene I really don't care for. Like, even if it's like, you know, 2 people finally coming together after, you know, even if it was like a Fitzsimmons sex scene, I'm really like, okay, I don't need to see this. I'm just glad you guys are together. You know, so.
Arrived here. I thought Earth left.
So.
Much to be desired.
Yeah. I mean, sex scenes are sex scenes.
Yeah.
I mean, not really much of it.
But I mean, I know this situation very different, and we brought it up in the beginning and all that. But it's just weird, especially with that context now. Because I mean, even with the Wonder Woman,
I can't unthink it.
Yeah, even with the Wonder Woman movie, I just kind of blanked it out of my mind. It wasn't until some people were bringing it up, I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, that's not good. You know, and there's some other shows too have done that too. Bridgerton, I don't know if you ever saw that show, but you know,
I know of it.
The specific scene I'm talking about is like you had two of the main characters. The man did not want to have kids. He told her that he can't have kids, and when she found out, it's like, wait a minute, can't and won't are different things. And so when they did it, he asked her to stop, and she didn't. And so it was kind of like, again, that kind of flew over my head, and people were bringing it up. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, that's also bad. What? Like, how does this? Yeah, it shouldn't happen, but it sometimes does. And
again, that element too probably wouldn't have been written that way today.
Mm-hmm.
So really interesting conversation.
Be warned, Lorelei is quite skilled at combat.
Also, we haven't mentioned too much. Jamie Alexander is always great as this character, and it's always a crime how little they've given her to do in everything. S.H.I.E.L.D. did the most with her than the movies ever did. I mean,
they tried with Love and Thunder, but it was still not enough. No,
they needed to do more with her.
Not a scratch on it, because yes, I am that good.
Well done. You really are quite clever.
That's why I'm standing guard. Would not want Sif to get out and hurt Lorelei.
Of course we wouldn't. And Lorelei wants me to go down to the basement, keep an eye on the girls downstairs.
Already locked them in. Cannot have them mucking up Lorelei's plan.
His heart now beats in concert with mine, and mine alone.
It's really interesting to see here Ward playing an adversary and going up against the team here. I don't know if it was intentional, but it almost just makes you feel like, I wonder if on some level they thought this would be one of the first clues they could throw out there about how to visually represent what it would look like for Ward to go up against the team, because he's there. And then also you got to wonder if Lorelei is able to, I wonder how much information Lorelei got out of Ward. And what I mean by that is if she ever found out about the whole situation with him being a double agent.
Yeah.
What the hell are you doing?
Sir, are you... You?
Of course I am. Fitz has Sif trapped in the cage. We need to unlock the door, get her out. What?
Coulson, they opened the airlock. She's gone.
I'm afraid she was sucked out of the aircraft.
Are you kidding? She's Asgardian. Sif's still out there. Unlock it, let her in. You, come with me, I need
I
your
love
help.
how he just immediately knew. It's like, yeah, she's freaking she's there.
Oh,
he didn't even give it a second thought.
That's funny, actually. I did not remember that. Holy shit. I thought
You
she
didn't
just kind
know?
of flew
Okay.
off and she's going to come back later on or something like
Right.
Good. I'll be right here.
Oh. I love this theme that Bear had here.
Leave me in peace. Return to Asgard.
While you remain here.
Bear, I think we talked about it when we watched The Well, but Bear did make his own music to kind of represent Asgard or Asgardian people, because we had an Asgardian in that episode. And he basically is reusing it, I think, here for Lorelai, and then adding some other arrangement in there too.
Healing at the feet of those who command you. Never to get what you desire. Not Haldor. Not Thor.
Again, this show is doing more with that than the movies ever cared to.
know.
Another idea that they could do on Disney Plus. They just bring back the Marvel one-shots and make every episode just be about a different Marvel character. One of them could be about Sif. The other could be about, I don't know, Cassie. I mean, Cassie Lang. Then you can make another one about, I mean, it would be cool to see the Red Skull become the guide or whatever he was.
If anything, just make a show about the people who were in the 5 years of the book.
Yeah, that's
the one thing. Especially with Cassie, like, what did she go through? Did she end up at an orphanage? Did she live on her own? Like, there was a lot of potential.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's true. We never really know what happens.
Yeah. And they never brought it up in Quantumania.
Choreography is definitely taking it up a notch, isn't it?
Yeah.
You notice it now.
This one was a little bit choppy, the one with Sif and her, but that's only because of the swords and everything. They're kind of like, there wasn't much.
We don't really see too much swords on the show, to be fair. Yeah. I think we get better sword action in season 6. Remember in that they did a little bit of an homage to Mulan when they had Ming-Na Wen do the same pose who played Mulan in the movie, but they did that when she was fighting Aizel at the end of the season. So that was a really good sword fight.
Yeah.
Odin ordered her back alive. As one of his warriors, I bow to his will.
Regardless of what it cost you.
By the way, I wanted to bring this up. I don't know if something happened, if Clark Gregg was working out in later seasons, but when they have him wear suits in the later seasons, because right here in season 1, like his suits, they fit him well, but they're just a little bit big, a little bit loose. When we get into, again, just bringing up wardrobe and costuming, when we get to seasons 3, 4, and 5, it fits a lot more tight, but it's more form-fitting, it looks better. And then also his hair, I don't know if you noticed, but like, I notice these things, but like his hair in the later seasons is a lot more thin. Because right here, I think right here his hair is like the longest it is the whole series.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if it's Clark Gregg balding or if it's a choice to just maybe he liked to wear his hair shorter. Just I bring this up like little cosmetic ways they show how the characters are growing and going through their lives, because I have noticed this and I think you noticed this more when you watched the show several times. I don't know if you picked that up, if you ever noticed that, David, but just some observations I wanted to make because again, for those of you who are not aware, while we're doing this rewatch series, I also have been rewatching and I'm way ahead, so I'm seeing how they look like in later seasons, and it's a bit of a you see how they change throughout.
You did.
Seems like we're done here.
Okay.
It's interesting. This bit of music here that just popped up, I don't quite know. Again, Barrett can use themes for different kind of things that are maybe connected, maybe not. But this music was used in the last episode that focused on May, if I remember correctly. Maybe it was in other moments, but I remember when this was playing right now, they played this music again after they had defeated Tobias the Ghost or whatever, and then Coulson says to her, "What did you say to her or to him to calm him down?" And she says to him, "The same words you said to me in Bahrain." Which was let the girl go, and then the music plays. So I don't know if it's meant to be a little bit of a May motif. I don't know, because it's not really used much later on in the show or past the season, but just to bring that up a little bit here.
Its source. It was alien.
You were trying to save my life. You did save my life.
I was desperate to, and so I subjected you to unknown ramifications or side effects.
I'm sorry to say this, sir, but so what? Plus, you're not sprouting a ponytail or anything, so bonus there.
I know nothing phases you, but this should phase you. We are completely in the dark on this.
That's where we live.
We have a long list of questions we need answers for, and we're going after them ourselves.
Well, if the team's up for it.
No, listen to me. I trust them, but we need to protect them from this.
Okay. That's why he's not talking to May about this. Because I don't think he really begins to doubt May until, well, you'll know that moment is fast approaching, but not quite yet.
And we make him pay.
This is personal now. And then it gets even, this right here. You remember this?
Protect them from this. Fury went to dangerous lengths to keep this under wraps. Lied to me, lied to S.H.I.E.L.D. This is a powerful secret.
I was like, wait, what are we seeing? Why are we watching this again?
Right?
Yeah, but I remember now.
He knows. I repeat, Coulson knows.
So May knew this whole time. More so than what we've already established, but with such specificity that she was aware that they used alien biology. So there's that. Okay, that is Yes Men. And I will say, again, as I said at the very top, a very enjoyable episode. And I think it does move things along, you know? And as you say, David, it is a bit of a distraction of sorts. But you know what? Like I understand and I recognize why people find things here that they don't like. And I totally get it. But I felt like it was a perfectly fine episode. I mean, nothing too much to get angry about, honestly. So I want to see. Let's see, actually, what was how it was received over AV Club. This is Oliver Sava, one of the two main writers who has been writing these reviews. I told you what was going to happen. Here's the first sentence. A superhero appears on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the show gets better, period. The first sentence, man. The first sentence. It doesn't... I'm glad, though, that was a pretty transparent, like, hey, this is what I'm here for, and I'm admitting this is what I wanted the whole time. I mean, you can't make this shit up. The first sentence of this review, a superhero appears on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the show gets better, period. Who'd have thought? He says, the presence of Thor's Lady Sif makes Yes Men feel like a bigger part of the MCU than previous episodes. Do you see here? But the reason this story succeeds is because the writer, Shalisha Francis, uses the Asgardian connection to push the season's overarching plots forward. The sorceress Lorelei escaped from her prison. Yada yada yada. Yes Men contains some definite shades of Fireflies. That's the show Firefly. Are Mrs. Reynolds, another story focusing on a wily redhead who manipulates men to get what she wants. While Saffron's appearance leads to considerable developments for Maul and Irena, Lorelei's presence forces the main romantic pairing, May and Ward, to confront the reality of their relationship. The episode doesn't have the sense of humor that Firefly script had. I thought it was pretty funny. He says, the villain is played straight as a vengeful sorceress looking to assemble a giant army of men. All right. Amora the Chantress is a big character in the Thor mythos, so it's likely that Marvel was waiting to introduce her on the big screen. Sure, like that was ever gonna happen. Or a well-known actress in the role. Amora's younger sister Lorelei doesn't have as much importance, which is probably why she's available for this show to use. Hopefully, Marvel continues to incorporate lower-tier comic characters into this series, because they not only expand the MCU, but help establish a fantastic atmosphere surrounding the human S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. The writers' past attempts at creating their own superhumans didn't work out too well, so they should take advantage of the wealth of characters introduced in the comics. Characters like Lorelei may not be extremely popular, but they have at least proved their worth by becoming reoccurring supporting players on the page. Lorelai's main function in this episode is to drive a wedge between May and Ward, taking control of Ward's mind after S.H.I.E.L.D. agents track her down, and gleaning information from it that she uses to cause mischief. It's a bit silly to see an Asgardian take time away from her quest for world domination to make her boy toy's former lover feel bad, but that's what supervillains do. Take cheap shots when they don't have to. This show exists in a world where anything can happen, and there are storytelling avenues available to it that don't exist in a more realistic series. If the writers want to complicate the relationship between the two characters, they can introduce an alien that uses sorcery to gather secret knowledge and have her reveal that just for kicks. Ward being more attracted to Skye than May is the kind of info that would probably never get out if it weren't for Lorelai's meddling. And learning about Ward's true desire shows May that her relationship is becoming more than just casual sex. That misplaced affection reveal is foreshadowed by a conversation between Sif and May. Lady Sif can sense May's connection to Ward when he disappears and tries to convince her to let him go, or risk being hurt when she can't free him from Lorelai's control. Recounting her own experience losing a lover to Lorelai's power, but there's another layer to Sif's speech that she may not be aware of, and that concerns her relationship with Thor. Sif wants to give her heart to Thor, but his belongs to Jane Foster, and her conversation with May is a warning so that she doesn't find herself in that position with Ward and Skye. By the way, I don't know what plans the MCU has for Thor, but last I checked, Jane Foster's dead. So if they ever want to explore that,
and it'll work. He has a daughter there now. You know, if they can have this funny little moment of her like trying to, of the daughter basically like push him towards Sif, like, hey, come on, give it a shot, come on, you know. There's a lot of funny things that they can do with that, which I really hope they do. Which I mean, who even knows if it's going to be a Thor 5 or
That's a big open question, and if there is, when, and then also who the hell they get to direct it. I'm not sure if I don't know. I'm not opposed to Taika coming back, but it seems like enough people are that wouldn't be likely for that to happen. Okay, just more recapping. There's a lot of comic book races that are now confirmed to exist in the MCU. The aliens that he mentions. Okay. At the end of the episode, Coulson confesses to Skye about the blue alien and the decade, and decides that it's time to stop sitting around waiting for answers. Skye is in 084. It's all a moment that feels like someone stepped on the plot accelerator, and Greg really sells Coulson's determination during his conversation with Skye. He's going to need that determination if he's going to get past the obstacles in his way, which happen to include Agent May, who is revealed to be a mole in the cliffhanger. It's not made explicitly clear, but May appears to be working with S.H.I.E.L.D. higher-ups to keep Coulson in the dark about his resurrection, and when she eavesdrops on the conversation with Skye, she has confirmation that Coulson is closer to the truth than ever. A great last-minute twist that adds a major new wrinkle to the show and turns up the suspense for the next chapter, making this a Thor crossover episode that gives new viewers a reason to return. Okay. Pretty good review. I should say pretty positive. Give it a B. Here's Eric Goldman on IGN. Yep, Sif helped. This was a big episode for... I know, right? A big episode for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as it featured Jamie Alexander reprising her role from the Thor movies as Lady Sif. Coulson recalling the one time he encountered Sif before in his nearly dreamy, it was pretty badass as he described her jumping onto the back of the destroyer and stabbing him through. The very amusing and seeing Sif among the S.H.I.E.L.D. team work well. Her main interactions were with Coulson and Melinda May, but those felt appropriate. Coulson because of their history, and May because, well, they're both badass women. In some ways, this was actually one of the darker and more adult-tinged episodes of S.H.I.E.L.D. Thor comic book villain Lorelai getting Rooster to kill his own wife in cold blood cemented her villainy in an effectively ruthless... That was pretty effective and cold. Lorelai then going on to actually sleep with Ward while she had him entranced was also notable, as the episode didn't back away from just how much power she had over the minds of men, S.H.I.E.L.D. agents or not. This, by the way, I want to make sure Eric Goldman is a man, so perhaps he may not be thinking with the things that people brought to it. I certainly didn't think of any of the issues regarding the sensitivity to things that happen until much later. So just to be clear, and this was, again, 2014. This episode also offered some of the most satisfying fight scenes the show has had so far. Sif absolutely cleaning house in that bar was quite cool, to say the least. Jamie Alexander is always incredibly fun and likable in this role, and really embodies this warrior woman in all her glory. The end of the episode was also really cool as we cut back and forth between Sif and Lorelai's big fight, and in many ways an even more intense fight between May and Ward. The two of them crashing through that glass was one of many effective moments in that fight. Also very appreciated was how this episode offered some tantalizing hints of the bigger Marvel universe without making too big of a deal out of it or overselling it. Lorelai's introduction alone is notable because of her place in Thor's history and the Enchantress's sister, a character many are hoping to see in the Thor movies, I guess, but I don't know if that's ever happening. Also, Sif's throwaway line about Odin wanting Lorelai alive at the end is way more notable when the end of the Dark World is taken into account. Wonder what plans Odin might have, what he needs Lorelai for. Then, of course, Odin as in Loki. Of course, Sif's quick rundown of every blue-skinned alien race she encountered, which included the very first MCU mentions of the Kree and many more. Oh, and we had Coulson tell Sif he wanted to tell Thor he was alive himself, helping to underline that no, not everyone, notably the Avengers, knows he's back. And from what I understand, they never do find out he's back. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't need to be centered on all the big events in the Marvel Universe, but early on, it seemed to go out of its way to stay isolated. Except for all those Battle of New York / Loki killed Coulson mentions, Sif and Lorelai's appearance was a nice way to weave into the MCU in a bigger way without being bogged down in it, and hopefully future episodes follow suit. Meanwhile, hearing Sitwell tell Coulson Fury was off the grid was notable as we get closer to the opening of Captain America the Winter Soldier and see how Fury's role plays out there. This show's main problem initially had been that the main characters weren't all that interesting. That is starting to change, though, and I was glad to see fun moments for both Fitz and Simmons. Here, Fitz's "she's the best" about Lorelai while under her spell was very funny, and it was good to see Simmons stand up to Coulson over him wanting to squash a seeming miracle cure. Also, Skye, who's been more problematic, I think he means in the context of like how people have received her character, did get to represent a lot of fans at the end when she exclaimed to Coulson that maybe he should appreciate that they were both alive and seemed okay, amongst all his concern over the alien element inside them. I was enjoying the surprising May Ward pairing, and am a bit disappointed that we're veering into love triangle territory here. Well, more so. I just wish Ward didn't have feelings for Skye. Because, come on, May is clearly the better choice. On the other hand, the reveal that May was spying on Coulson and Skye and her mysterious phone call at the end was a nice twist. No, I don't think May is secretly evil, and it would be silly if she was. But finding out she's been keeping tabs on Coulson is certainly intriguing. He gave the episode 8.5. Great. So, interesting, of course. One of the immediate observations that I saw the look on your face, David, you caught on, that of course they're shouting out the comic book basically characters that are coming on here, how it connects to the larger MCU, and noticeably how all of a sudden the reviews are far more positive than they have been, really, because seemingly it's all that they want, and then everything else like, oh, this is cool here, this is cool there. Not much negativity in these reviews today. I wonder what that was all about. Anyway, your thoughts on these reviews, and then also your own thoughts on this episode and where it lands for you. Ultimately, we're in episode. This was 15?
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we only have about 8 episodes left of the season.
Yeah.
8 or 7, I want to say.
But yeah, no, I expected this from the reviews. They were gonna say it's a little, yeah, this was more fun. We got a big reference to the MCU and all that. But the episode itself, it really is fun. I like seeing Sif. I like that she's utilized here. It's at the time it was, we were all thinking it's like, yeah, this is how you can use the show. Like, have some fun with it, hopefully, and all that. And we mentioned too, it's like it's a nice little distraction / break of the whole main plot of it, and but it still moves it forward by doubling down on Coulson wanting to get answers, basically. So
yeah,
it was a good episode.
We shouldn't underestimate how nice it was, though. I know that right now we were kind of like making fun of these critics for like, yay, we get characters, and yay, that means great. But at the same time, it's like, look, on some level, what they did with Sif here is what people wanted.
Mm-hmm.
What the more masses wanted out of the show. And for how it's done here, it's done very, very well. And you could see a template of this just being the show, going forward. And I think there's appeal there, definitely. But, I don't know. I feel like, to me, anyway, at this point, 15 episodes in, and I'm talking about 2014 me watching this, what got me interested in this show in the first place was for episodes like these, right? Which would expand the universe. But I stayed for our team.
Mm-hmm.
I stayed every week because this show got me to care about these characters, which is what any good TV show should do, really, instead of relying on gratuitous cameos. Yeah. But also, this wasn't really a cameo. They actually used the character, and they gave her some stuff to do here, which kind of grows her out more than how she was used in the films, as we said many times. So I feel like, and the same could have been done with a whole bunch of other characters. They could have used. But again, but going back to what my main point is, like, well, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for me definitely helped me love the MCU a lot more, I think. And I'm talking about in that era, 2013, 2014, 2015, it made me love the whole universe a lot more than just if I had only been watching the movies. So again, I say to all of our S.H.I.E.L.D. stands out there, you gotta appreciate the fact that while we aren't necessarily regarded that highly in some circles, I do feel like we did get the best of both worlds, where we got a universe that we cared about on the screen and we enjoyed the movies enough, but we also really, really loved, and let's be honest, a lot more so than the movies, let's be real here, the TV side of things, specifically with this show. Because I mean, me personally, if we're gonna consider everything MCU, this has always been my number one. Me personally. The Guardians would be a good second, I would say. MCU. And that's not even getting into, well, what is the MCU now? Because if you watch Deadpool and Wolverine, well, are we counting the X-Men movies? Are we counting Deadpool? Are we counting the Fantastic Four Fox films? Are we counting the Ghost Rider Fox? I don't know if Fox, maybe it was, I don't know who did the Ghost Rider movies, but it was confirmed Ryan Reynolds was trying to get Nicolas Cage to be in that movie. It wasn't in the movie, sorry, spoiler, whatever, but he's not in the movie, but he was trying to get Ghost Rider in the movie. I mean, he could have used a different Ghost Rider. There was another one that played him. So I don't know, get Diego Luna's number. I'm sure he would have said yes to be there. It is Diego Luna, right?
I have no idea.
It's not Cassian Andor that plays.
No,
I don't get the damn. It's not. I'm sorry. I cannot let this go. I need to know right now if I got that name wrong. Because I will be crucified. No, I got it right. Thank God.
Oh,
Gabriel Luna, who plays
Gabriel
Robbie Reyes on the show. Yeah, Gabriel Luna. Yeah. I said Gabriel, right?
No, you said Diego.
I said Diego. Oh no. I'm sorry. I meant to say Gabriel. Sorry. You see?
You were close.
Okay,
though.
so if I said Diego, yeah. You see, I was thinking of Cassian Andor. No, I said Cassian Andor, but I was thinking of Robbie Reyes. Diego Luna plays Cassian Andor. Gabriel Luna plays Robbie Reyes. Sorry, guys. Sorry. But I caught myself. I was like, wait a minute. I didn't feel right. So at least I caught myself there. Sorry. Anyway, please let us know what you think about this episode. And anything else we might have said on today's show in the comments below. We love interacting with you. And of course, as I mentioned before, if you want to go over to our main review for Deadpool and Wolverine, and we got plenty of other comments and commentary on other Marvel stuff, including audio commentaries for Infinity War, Endgame, Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and Captain Marvel. So it's all there if you want to go see it. Or hear it. It's on our channel. Thank you, David, for being here. Thank you all for our audience for watching and listening, and we will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.